Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast. My name is Ian Said, but most people know me as Tacho. And today we have the pleasure to talk with Josh Craig, better known as Barnard being one of the creators of the OrionRank alongside EazyFreezie. Barnard has been considered as one of the most trustworthy members of the competitive Smash community, making world rankings as well as being a seeder for its PGStats. Honestly, I'm so excited that he's here because he's one of my aspirations, as I also want to work as an analyst of results and statistics for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Barnard how are you?
I'm doing quite good.
Awesome to hear. So you want to get started with this interview slash podcast?
Yes.
Awesome. So I wanted to start this podcast talking about the beginnings of this entity known as Barnard. What was the first time you started playing Smash, and how long have you been in the Smash community?
I started playing Smash casually, I would say in 2003, 2004. I played Melee when I was little, just casually. And I just kind of got into the online community, I would say about '05 or '06. Um, just by happenstance, my parents let me go online a lot, so I'd go on like IGN and a lot of old internet boards. And I followed the brawl scene. And after I kind of came and went in the late 2000s and early 2010s a bit to play Yu-Gi-Oh, I came back, I'd say in 13, 14 um, for Project M.
Mm-hmm.
And early on into Wii U, I started to collect numbers.
Oh, interesting. So you've been like really early into the scene. It's quite interesting to get to know such a such an interesting figure that has been for such a long time. How
Yeah.
no, you were saying. Sorry.
No. There's just a little bit of a delay, so I just there's a little bit of a pause in my voice.
It's
You're good to
okay.
go.
I was about to say it. How does it feel that you're in this in this thing for so long? Probably you've been longer than possibly some Steve Mains have been alive.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just part of the internet generation thing where I've been around quite a long time, and it's fun to see stuff come and go. And this is one of the only communities I've stayed in for an extended period of time. The weirdest bit is I don't know if you guys have this show in Argentina, but there's a show called Survivor, and top melee player back in the 2000s,
Can yeah.
Ken, was on it. And I
It's
remember telling my parents, like I like knew who that was, so I was like, "Mom, Dad, this video game player's on Survivor." It was just weird. It's weird to look back on
yeah,
more than anything else.
it's interesting you say that because I am a Survivor fan. So it's
Yeah.
I mean there isn't that big of a scene of Survivor here in South America, you think? I don't think there is Survivor in Argentina like since 2020 no, since 20 wait, since 2001 if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's pretty interesting the fact that Ken went to Survivor and got this persona that is not common inside of the in the competitive in video game competitive scene, and have this
Yeah.
person appear in such a well known reality show. It's amazing. It's game changing, basically.
Yeah, because back in the 2000s, Survivor was like huge. That's back when people still really watched cable and had TV and stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Honestly, although I have been watching Survivor after the like the cable era, So
Yeah,
I kind of understand where you're coming from, but not so much uh, because I couldn't watch it with cable. um,
right, right.
Going back to the interview, where does the tag come from? Because it's certainly a pretty interesting tag, to say the least.
Yeah, it's the name of I think it's the name of a nebula. I don't remember the exact classification of it, but I'm really into like space stuff,
Hmm.
astronomy, astrophysics, stuff like that are all very interesting to me. And that's where the tag came from. I just decided one day I'd go with that tag. I used to go by Rob Lucci, which is also part of why my tag on Discord is Rob, because it kind of worked out. If you know what One Piece is. Um,
Not so much though.
but
Sorry.
yeah, it okay. Oh, that's fine. I don't really follow that much anymore, but no, it's a space thing.
All
Bernard's
right.
Loop.
All right. Well, how long have you been involved in rankings in general, and necessarily Smash? But
Late 2016, I decided impromptu while I was on Smashboards. I just thought, what if I did a year-wide ranking? And then EazyFreezie DM'd me
mm,
on Smashboards, and things took off from there.
oh, interesting because one of the questions I was about to ask was how did you made how you met Easy Freezy and how did you guys decide to create this alternative global power ranking?
Yeah, he wanted to do, I believe, the graphic work initially, and then as we continued to work together, he had some really good suggestions
Mm,
to help improve the ranking, and then we've bounced off of each other for quite a long time doing stuff with this. So,
pretty cool. Well, you also have a blog called In the Loop. How long has this been since this page existed?
I think I started it. Um, I think I started it before I did the rankings. I want to say I started it whenever Smashdown World happened. I can't remember if that was 2016 or 2017. It was a French event that was pretty big at the time. It had some Japanese players at it, had some American players at it. And I think I wanted to start doing event coverage, and I just started it then.
Right. I have a question though. Is Rob Luke Rob Luke Siorion, is that you or is any other person that does studies and analytics?
I think pretty much the entire website's me. Freezy has some articles on there,
Okay.
but it's just me and him. Yeah.
All right. Well, where does the name OrionRank comes from?
Uh, I think it's just an extension of a lot of the space theming stuff I was doing.
Uh,
Uh, yeah, I think it's just that. I don't think I had any specific reason beyond the fact that it sounded fairly catchy, I thought at the time. So,
do you think that there's still people that believe that it's related to the French player Orion?
I don't think anyone believes that for real. I think that's a meme. I'm not totally sure. It is funny though.
I mean, I've heard a couple of South American players that believe that it was because of that. That you were either from
But
Europe and maybe either you or EasyFreezie were from Europe and were like, oh, just have this tag from this player and make it a rank. I don't know.
that's funny. No, that's incidental.
All right, cool. Have you ever thought that this ranking could be as credible and used more than the PG stats?
Uh, it's never really been a competition. We've always tried to have an idea for when each other's rankings are so we
Hmm.
don't overlap.
Of course.
Um,
I mean,
ah,
I mean, I didn't want it
it's
to sound like a
bigger right.
competition or anything. It's just that.
Oh no, I understand. I understand. I think it just has its place. I don't think it's going to ever be bigger than the Panda Global Rankings.
Hmm.
I think it's going to have its place though,
Mm, of
as a
course.
sort of stopgap, occasional like mid-season rankings. We do regional rankings. It's fulfilling the purpose I hoped it would.
Of course. Um, you recently launched the OrionRank Ultimate Eclipse. How long did it take
Hmm.
to recollect all of the data for the specific ranking?
Freezie did a good chunk of the work this year on that, and I would assume dozens of hours. I spent about, I can't even remember because I also wrote the blurbs, so I can't even remember the total time I spent, but I would assume probably 60 to 100 hours
Huh.
at least.
That's. I mean, it is a lot, but it's honestly less than I thought.
Yeah,
But
I could be wrong. It could be more.
hopefully more. All right. Well, this is a long statement and question. One thing that is pretty interesting from these rankings, in comparison to at least PGStats, for example, is that you guys try to make it as complete as possible, adding players from underrated regions such as Firehouse from Chile or EMS from Saudi Arabia.
Hmm.
And now with PGStats
Yeah.
probably no longer having that opportunity open in the future, OrionRank is the best choice from players that want to check a more consistent and diverse ranking and having the opportunity to get in those rankings. Have you ever thought that you will make such an impact in the current meta of Smash Ultimate and the rankings?
I didn't expect it to go quite as far as it's gone. I think having an opening, because people wanted a ranking, I think,
Hmm.
uh, and obviously Panda Global wasn't providing it because they didn't want to encourage people to go to events, which I think is fair.
Of course.
So people latched onto this because it was the probably the second most well-known one after the PGR.
Yeah. Um. Although, how's your opinion? Not on like global rankings, but on like regional
Hmm.
rankings, because people think that they're not as important or they're not as valid. And how's your opinion around that?
I think that they're really, really important. Part of the issue with global rankings is uh, they only really take majors into account, which I think is fine, but a lot of people have issue with major access. Major access is a serious issue for pretty much everywhere besides like the United States, Canada, kind of, and Japan. Those are really the only three areas with persistent majors, and Europe too. They have some, but they don't get a lot of international attendance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like Latin America has issues with major access, which is really a shame because they have a lot of good players.
Yeah. I mean, I,
Like
I
Shiny Mart, yeah.
I mean, I personally feel that if there will be more tournaments like Smash Factor, for example, the community in Latin America will be more recognizable. Not only Mexico, but probably Central America and South America. The problem is, of course, not only getting a visa, but also the cost of travel. For
Yeah.
example, I think from Argentina to the U.S., I think just the travel is like $2,000. So
Yeah, that sounds, yeah, that sounds correct. So, uh,
that sounds
yeah.
pretty great. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the opportunity to travel to majors is, and not only to travel to majors, but being consistent in majors, because you have to at least get like 2 or 3 results. It's really difficult. No, not only for the people in South America and
Yeah,
Central
that
America, but
yeah.
for Mexico as well, or Europe.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing because like if when you're going out of country to like the United States, pretty much anywhere there, and you're going to a major, so many eyes are on you to perform well, and it puts a lot of pressure on you. And if you don't perform well, people just discard you, and I don't think that's fair. It becomes a mess.
Hmm.
It's part of the reason I'm glad that Europe did pretty well at Glitch last weekend.
Yeah.
Leon got ninth, had some really good wins. I'm hoping it's a harbinger for other countries to do well.
Definitely. I mean, although I personally don't think that France is the best representative of the European community, I personally believe it's Spain. But it's really interesting how I think 4 out of 6 players got to top 32, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's Neros, Leon
Uh,
Blotny, and I think there's one
uh,
more.
Rafflo, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
it
but
was those four. Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's pretty interesting how this community has changed in comparison to, for example, Smash 4, where Mexico was the country that people thought that it was not as important, and now it's probably the third um, most important scene in the current meta.
Yeah, and that's weird because when you look at Mexican results from back in Smash 4, I don't actually think much has changed. It's just more people are paying attention now.
Really?
Visa issues were a serious problem. Yeah, visa issues were a serious issue in Smash 4.
No,
I
definitely.
think they have improved a bit, but I mean, if you did like a 2015 ranking, which I'm working on right now, there'd probably be four Mexican players in the top 30.
4. Mm,
Yeah,
okay. Oh yeah, MKLeo,
Leo,
Hyuga.
um,
Um.
Surge, and Womf.
Oh. Yeah.
They had competitive records against Hugo and Leo. It was insane.
Yeah.
And
True.
Leo was, I think, still pretty good at the time. So
Yeah. 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 That's about right. Well, talking again about the Orion ranks, although with pretty highs,
hmm
it also comes with questionable choices. I mean, every world ranking has
yeah,
it. PGStats had Ron on
yeah,
the PGR V2 and not Leffen, and there was this guy that made a top 100 rankings from 2020 to ending of 2021 and had Nairo for the top
uh-huh.
1.5 if I'm not mistaken. So my question
Yeah.
is, why Ouch was placed as 47th? I personally think it would have made more sense next to Dark Thunder, who had a similar situation.
Yeah, no, that's valid. I think the biggest issue is that certain regional results were way too much. Like
Mm,
if you have a bunch of people in a single region and then they get a decently large event, and that person and those people never travel out of that region and they just play each other, the top player in that region, if they're not like losing anything and they're winning everything, they're going to be ranked really high, which is what happened with Ouch. It's like a lightning in a bottle with him. Everything worked out for him to be top 50. And we're going to try and make sure stuff like that doesn't happen in the future.
mm. I mean, it really makes sense because I mean, not only Ouch was from this region of region of Canada that had really strong regionals. But it was
Yeah.
confusing at first. Like we saw that the clip from Light. Really, let's get fucking ouch out of here. But
Yeah.
but like I said, it's pretty interesting to also have other players such as Jay Dissel or Emas in this ranking, and being thought over and being like, yes, this is a player that needs to be in this ranking because he has this result, this result, this result. So like I said before, it has such a diverse amount of players in this ranking in comparison to other world rankings.
Yeah, we generally one of the biggest things that I'm doing this year in particular is I'm allowing lower entrant events in other countries
Hmm.
specifically to get some like good data profiles so I don't miss their events and stuff. Because it seems like countries like South America have a bit of a hard time getting 64 entrants, but they regularly cap 32 to 48.
Yeah.
So I can catalog a lot of stuff.
I mean, I can help you if you need help with that.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, I wanted to ask something that was pretty controversial recently. Not necessarily talking about drama or
Hmm.
anything, but it's
Oh
quite
yeah, yeah.
it's quite this interesting discussion that happens with this important tournament. We're not gonna talk about Smash World Tour if that's the thing. No, that's another huge problem with itself that I personally don't want to get involved with it because I got way too involved with it in 2021. Um,
Right.
but what's your opinion on having American players for Summit?
Um, it's interesting because I think that the summit qualifiers should be structured much differently than they are. Because the voting phase is very tilted in favor of America,
Hmm.
like super tilted. I think I read a suggestion that said that maybe like just invite the top four global and then have some qualifiers spread around a little bit everywhere. Ideally, I think you'd have like a couple of spots or maybe one spot in Mexico. You'd have maybe a couple of spots in America, a couple of spots in Japan, a couple spots in Europe, maybe try and do something for Australia. Oceania is very far out, so it's a little bit of a troublesome one to do
Yeah,
properly, but something a little more spread out. Because all the spots as it is are mostly at main stage.
yeah, yeah. I was honestly pretty shocked that that was just only main stage and then the rest is just voting phase. So and I know and of course the invited players, but it is
Yeah,
what it is.
and two of the invited players were Debuzz and Light, and they got seventh at main stage each. So
Yeah,
essentially, there were like eight spots for main stage, and then Gluttony and Proto, and then of course the voting phase. So it
yeah,
was mostly voting phase and main stage.
yeah. Honestly, in my personal opinion, I think it should be like half American, half outside of the U.S. Because it gives more chance to like more representation in from other regions. But it
Yeah,
was it was not jarring, but it was kind of because I kind of expected it to happen, to like only one representative from outside of the U.S. But it still was kind of disappointing.
yeah. I was hoping Keen would make it.
Yeah,
He did well in the Twitter voting phase, but it's hard to win summit campaigns when you get to the actual money phase because they're so. It's like a solved game at this point. It's a matter of having a really dedicated like local scene and stuff like that, and it's just hard.
yeah. No, definitely. I mean, you also have this amount of players that will give money in the US because it's not as difficult in comparison to Australia or South America or Europe, etc. So it,
Right,
it it makes
right.
sense.
Yeah. Europe also split themselves between Siski and Raflo, which didn't help.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, definitely. But we have to
yeah,
wait and see for
yeah.
another summit or anything else compared to it. Honestly, if they make a Smash World Tour again, I don't know what will happen, but we have to wait and see.
Eh, Yeah, Smash World Tour again would be interesting. I'm just hoping some of the structure is better. But
I I honestly hope that if they make another Smash World Tour, it gets with the original idea in mind, and not with online qualifiers or uh, qualifiers
right,
depending on certain aspects of the tournaments. Like the original idea was
right.
two tournaments for each region. These tournaments were counting for this spot, and then for this and
Yeah,
this and this. That was a really interesting idea, but of course, pandemic. So
yeah, yeah. the original structure was good. It just needed a little more regional coverage, and then I think it would have been perfect, basically.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, the thing with um, the thing with Smash Bros. Like I've said a million times, it just needed to be in 2022 instead of 2021, and it will work perfectly.
Yeah, yeah.
Going back to the interview, which players do you think that are going uh, to be a big threat this year, and which players do you think that are going to start flopping? Not drama involved or any BS, just but at least based on
Oh,
statistics.
this year, players who would rise up. It's an interesting question. Because glitch just happened, and like Zombo looks like he's primed to be
Mm,
like top 15.
yeah,
Cosmos looks like he might be top 10 outright at this point. He's quite scary. Uh, it's interesting seeing him back to back from Smash World Tour to Glitch. He's become very consistent.
yeah,
I think those are two players to watch. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I feel like Mars and Glutoni have dropped off a bit. I'm hoping that changes.
yeah,
Uh, Gluto did do pretty well at Glitch.
hmm
Just I don't know. It's between that and the French regional event that happened, where he got I think 17th,
yeah. I
where it
remember.
doesn't quite feel like he's top 10. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
it
it
doesn't
was
feel like he's top
Wanted,
10 right
if I'm not
now.
mistaken.
It was I think it was like Wanted Saint Valentine
Yeah,
edition. I think it was the name. Um, his losses weren't terrible.
nah,
It's just you're so used to him dominating France that it's odd when it doesn't happen.
yeah. I still remember that bet on 2019 that if he got defeated by a European, someone will win. I think it was €1,000. So
Uh-huh.
it's pretty shocking to see that transition to now. Got getting 17th, lost into two European players at a regional event. You know, but
And there's two European players. Oh yeah.
no, you were saying. I think you were gonna say
Yeah.
something that was similar to what I was gonna say, that players that are going to be a big threat this year. If I may
Yeah,
say
there were
something.
two that from Europe because even though Gluttony seems like he's a little bit lower on the rankings now, I think Europe as a whole has mediated and a lot of their players are rising up.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the ones that I'm really interested to see are Bloom Forever, uh,
Mm, yeah,
probably the UK's best player right now. Uh, I'm really excited to see them go to a big tournament.
definitely.
And I know he's from Saudi Arabia, but he's studying in the UK right now. EMAS.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because of visa issues, I don't know if he could make it to the U.S. But if he does,
Yeah.
yikes.
Yes. I'm expecting big things from him. Honestly, I think he'll
Yeah,
do
me
well
too.
because he's been to New England before. I believe he's been to New England before.
Yeah,
A lot of people from the Middle East and Southeast Asia end up in New England for school, and they get some experience because New England's a good region. So
hmm yeah. I'm hoping.
I'm hoping he'll get some visa.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've been interested in the Middle Eastern community since 2016, if I'm not mistaken, with a tournament that appeared Japanese players. I think it was the last tournament of Renai and
Uh huh.
9B and 9B, if I'm not mistaken, as well. I've been interested in that scene for so long, so having this representation from such an interesting scene and being probably one of the biggest names right now in Europe, if he gets the chance
Uh huh.
to go to the US, yikes. Just
Yeah, it
yikes.
would be the biggest accomplishment for the Middle Eastern scene, I
hmm
think, to date. Uh, it's not something I expected to happen, and I'm very glad that it has happened.
Of
So,
course. I mean, well, not necessarily. I mean, of course, in the Smash community, but not necessarily FGC because we have
oh
Pakistan
yeah, yeah.
in second. But although I don't think that, although now I think about it, it's not Middle East, but it's a region of Asia that is not Japan or South Korea or China. So it is a big thing.
And I know that there's been yeah, I know that there's been a few Middle Eastern players to get top eights at big Street Fighter tournaments too. I think United Arab Emirates has done well at a few events. They're much more. It's like with China, where it's just, and South Korea too, where they exist in Smash, but I think they're a lot bigger in other games,
Hmm.
probably because of the PC rather than having to use a console, is my guess.
Yeah, for sure. That's probably the big thing. Um, well, like you said, I personally believe that Bloom for Even, EMS, and probably Siski will get huge results this year. And like you said, probably
Hmm.
Mars will flop. Although I'm hoping that that's not the case, even though I do not like watching CSS. Um, so moving on with this interview, how did you enter on PGStats, and how do you feel the comparison between ranking is?
How did I enter PG Stats? Just start working with them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think they rung me up one day, like DM'd me. They were interested. I think the biggest part of it was probably my coverage of the Smash World Tour on Smashboards. I was doing that a lot. That got a lot of traction. They were interested in me writing some stuff for them, so I hopped on board and I've been working with them since. So but wow, not even a year yet. But yeah, no, long year.
That's a pretty long year, yeah.
Uh, and like comparisons between the two rankings.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's weird. I'm thinking of like the fall 2019 ranking that they did.
Hmm.
To me, that's like one of their best rankings, and it's interesting to see how much it's improved. I think it's going in the right direction in terms of international representation. It's getting there slowly, and I'm interested to see how it does when there's a full-on global scene. Because right now, of course, it's just regional stuff, um, which is cool, of course. But it's going to be fun to see a full-fledged global season.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what other comparisons I can just think of beyond the differences. I'm glad that they're going to be going into top 100s, and
Mm.
I'm honestly glad they're going to be doing panels.
Yeah.
Uh, I would prefer panels.
Yeah, me too.
It's just a
Honestly,
matter. You just need to, yeah.
yeah. Although I, although I'm honestly surprised that the top 100 wasn't implemented in like the fall of 2019 because it was such a big year with such a lot of players that made interesting comebacks or interesting results. But if they make it this year or they make it with panels, I wouldn't be. I will be satisfied otherwise. You
Yeah, the fall 2019 season is probably the most active and competitive any
know. Hmm.
season has been for Smash, at least outside of Melee. I'm not sure
Yeah.
on Melee, but for like Brawl, Smash 4 Ultimate, by far the most competitive, and a top 100 would have been really cool for that season.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's why it ended up being controversial, is because a lot of people had good results, and it's just hard to fit in 50 people.
Mm, definitely. I mean, I personally think that the fall of 2019, like you said, um it was the biggest competitive scene from a period of time from this past 15 years, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah,
I mean, aside Mela and probably aside 64, if I'm not mistaken, but
definitely outside of 64. Yeah.
uh, but it is it is interesting that people were angry for certain players that got lower spots comparison to that same player getting 65th or 49th or 97th at other tournaments. It is really interesting to try to like get that player higher when that player got lower results. How is your experience around that, for example, with Goblin or Chag getting those type of results?
Yeah, I've been doing a paper on the 2019 PGR, the fall 2019 PGR, so it's interesting to talk about it. I mostly agree with it. I think the biggest thing for a lot of people was like Ron over Leffen, and I don't know how to interpret that one. That's hard to interpret because they had similar results. I would edge it out to Leffen. I would have voted him, but it's interesting to do a paper on it because it's such a chaotic season. So you have players who you feel like they should be higher, but they had one or two events that just weren't great.
Hmm.
So it's hard to do.
Of course. I mean, when I saw Ron on the PGRV2, I was like, but there's
Uh,
2 or 3 players that are ranked higher on the Japanese ranking. How is this player in the top
yeah,
50? But at the end of the
yeah,
day,
it's
it wasn't
weird.
that such a big
Yeah,
deal. I'm so sorry, we were saying.
yeah, it just had to do. Yeah. It just had to do with. I think it had to do with how Japan did in America. I think that just kind
Mm,
of supercharged everything.
yeah, I think so
And
too.
how a lot of Japanese events I don't think were taken into consideration. I can't exactly remember which ones were and weren't off the top of my head, but yeah, stuff like that.
Hmm. Um, how difficult is to rank players for big majors since majors have made a comeback last year, and how it was before the pandemic in comparison?
It's substantially harder now.
Hmm.
There's less events at the moment. There's less regional results to work with. A lot of people, because there's no active PGR season, or at least there won't be for another few days, will have events where they experiment and they won't do as well, and it's hard to criticize those runs because they weren't taking them that seriously.
Mm,
So it's extremely difficult now. I thought that panel voting for North America for the PGR contenders thing was probably the hardest panel ranking I've done. So
yeah. Do you think
it
that
took a lot of time.
panel voting for this year will exclude certain players that are not going to be appearing that could have appeared on the previous rankings, but due to the um, due to now panel voting being so exclusive for certain regions, that possibility will no longer exist. Like for example, if a South American player gets or a Central American, well, let's get a more consistent example. If Shining Mark, for example, gets top 16 or top
Yeah.
8 consistently in U.S. tournaments, how could that be um, like how could that be how could that be shown in in the PGR? You know.
This was an interesting bit with Glutoni, because he had attended a few American events, and when we were doing the panel vote for North America, we had the option to rank him speculatively, where he would have been ranked in
Hmm.
North America.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what would happen if Shiny Mark attended. Now, uh, I can't remember if the North American rankings use Central American results. They use Caribbean results. They use
Hmm.
Dominican Republic results.
Right.
But I'm honestly not sure how they would manage that. I think it would be like a speculative vote where you have the option to do it, and
Hmm.
it would be disadvantageous for areas outside of more or less the big three areas.
Right. Although now I think of it,
Like I don't
the
know how they would. Oh, sorry.
no, so sorry, you were saying you know how
No,
they'll.
like I said, there's There's a little bit of a delay. That no problem. I also don't know how they would handle like if a South Korean player started doing really well in Japan. That's
Hmm.
all I wanted to say.
Yeah. Although now I think about it, the three panels are North America, that includes U.S., Canada, Mexico. The other is Europe, and the other is Japan, right?
Yeah.
I thought that Japan was not gonna be in the panel, or I think that happened on the last contenders list, right?
Yeah, the last contenders list, Japan, I just don't think wanted a ranking, is what
Mm-hmm.
I understand to be the case. They just didn't want
Yeah.
one, but they're going to have one for the PGR. I would assume Japanese players and TOs would panel that. I
All
would hope
right.
so.
How else do you know? Um, well, in terms of playing the game competitively, now talking about that aspect of the game, I know that you're a Meta Knight main from Texas. Out of all characters, why Meta Knight?
uh, yeah, still play Mennonite. I like him a lot in this game. Um, I guess it's just because he's a kind of a weird combo character. He's like a brawler, but with a sword. It's incredibly weird. He's like, there's not really any other character in the game quite like him. He's probably the character I've put the most time into. It's like I main him and a few other sorties,
Mm,
basically. And I just like his escape options. I like his combos. I like his just. If he frankly has a brain dead recovery, you don't have to think when you recover. It's fun. And he's okay at like killing at early percents.
right. How do you feel about Meta Knight in the current place of the Ultimates meta? That's quite a weird pun. Now that I think about it.
I think he's solid actually. I think he's like probably like high tier ish. The main reason I think people haven't picked him up in this game is because he's a lot different than he was in Smash 4. In Smash 4, he was a glass cannon, really.
Yeah.
You dash attacked and killed somebody at early percent. He was linear.
Yeah.
And in this game, he has taken some of his neutral options back from Brawl, just way less broken, substantially less broken.
Yeah.
So he's a lot more of a mixed character now, and I think a lot of people just don't care for it. He's a very slow-paced character a lot of the time. There was a set it glitch between Bonk and
Mm.
Neroz that went on for like 40 minutes, and it's a good example of how campy Mennonite can be.
Yeah. But I think that because of Bonk and Yay from Central America, now we're gonna see more results or more play or at least more placings and upsets. But we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm hoping that's the case.
Mhm.
Um, Characters meta is still kind of a little stagnant.
Mhm.
The biggest issue with Ye is that he also plays he plays everybody. So there's no guarantee in a year he'll still be a Meta Knight main.
No, I think when
Well,
I did a podcast with him, he was like, Meta Knight was his main character, and I don't think he was gonna change from that. But
okay, cool.
I think he uses other characters for like knowing matchups or like knowing what will be the disadvantages with Meta Knight or for fun, you know. At the end of the
Yeah,
line, we're playing this for fun, and you
right.
know.
Oh yeah, that's actually cool to hear. I'm glad that he'll keep playing him.
Yeah, I mean, he will still be a random main, you know, but Meta Knight will be the main focus, you
Right.
know. How's the level of the community in Texas in comparison to other states or regions?
I think it's a lot better in this game than it was in Smash 4.
Really?
Well, it's actually kind of hard to say for sure. In Smash 4, we did have, Lima 1 Evo,
Yeah.
but I feel like the overall depth of the state wasn't that great,
Mm.
and I feel like it's a little bit better in this game. Um, Biggest issue we have in this game is a lot of our good players that were variably good in Smash 4, they kind of came and went, like Trella.
Mm.
I don't think a lot of people don't play the game anymore. Um, I would say in comparison to other states, oh, I'd say like Texas is like top 7, 6-ish in the U.S.
Top seven,
I
six.
don't think we're as good as Georgia or Cali, um, or Florida or like New York, but I think we're just behind them in terms of that.
All right. How do you felt about the transition from Smash 4 to Ultimate, and how has it been your experience with Lucario and Rob at the beginning of the game versus now?
I think the reason I just don't play Rob anymore is because he doesn't play quite like he did in Smash 4. It feels like in Smash 4 he was kind of like a grappler
Mm-hmm.
with like projectiles, and grabs were so nerfed in this game that he just didn't play how I liked him to play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely true with Lucario. I think Lucario is bad in this game. Uh, I think he's like maybe bottom 10 at best. I think he's quite bad, and I just can't play him anymore. They just nerfed him into the ground. And going into this game, it's been a matter of trying to find characters that feel smooth to play.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I like to avoid platforms because they kind of feel like tar in this game, just a little bit.
Yikes.
You kind of get stuck. It kind of get stuck to them. So I like to play characters that are good at maneuvering around them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just generally went back to sorties because I also played a lot of sorties in Smash 4. I liked Marth and Cloud,
I mean,
but
yeah.
no, just in this game, yeah.
Do you miss Smash 4 or do you like Ultimate more?
Overall, I like Ultimate more. I miss certain things in Smash 4. I miss. Actually, I miss Smash 4's online, I think is the biggest thing I miss. I liked it
Definitely.
more.
For
That's the
sure.
biggest thing I miss more than anything else. But the balance in this game is substantially better. That does have downsides because there will be matchups that you just don't fight regularly that you have no idea what you're doing in.
I, s-
Um,
I still don't know
but I
what to do
think
against
it's
some of them.
probably a net. Yeah, I think it's probably a net positive because it gives more people options, and as someone who has basically had a main character crisis forever, I appreciate the ability to just play like 10 characters and have fun with it.
Yeah.
So, I, yeah, that's yeah. I think online's really the only thing I really miss, and perfect pivots.
Mm, yeah. One character that has been really talked about since his appearance in Ultimate, and more nowadays after Glitch Infinite. What's your opinion on Steve, and do you think he should be banned?
I don't think he should be banned, at least not right now. You
Mm,
always got to give some time on that.
of course.
But generally speaking, I just think that he came out at the right time.
Mm,
He came out, I think, during quarantine,
yes.
and a lot of people had the time and means to grind out all of his tech and his neutral options, just how to use minecart, stuff like that. And I just think the end result is that you have a lot of really experienced younger mains with him, some people who were really interested in playing him because he's a very unique character.
Mhm.
Uh, and I just think it's a matter of waiting and seeing exactly what he does before like people freak out. I think people were a little too reactive to Jake's run at Glitch. It was a very good run though,
It
and
was
it
a
had
really
some very
amazing
silly.
run.
It had some silly moments in it, but the silliest one wasn't really a Steve issue. It was like an issue with Olimar.
Of
So
course. Yeah, I know. I know what you're talking about. I know about those backers.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't think it necessarily was a problem about Jake's run. I think it was more of a problem with having, I think it was 5 Steves in top 64, if I'm not mistaken. And some of them, not only
Yeah.
Jake, had really big offsets. So,
Yeah, the upsets were, I think, from Yori,
mm,
Jake, and Yanni, I think, were like the big three that tournament.
yeah,
There were, I think, a couple of others. I can't remember the top 64.
yeah. I'll check it
I
right now.
calculated, yeah, I calculated the top 32. I don't remember 33rd to 49th.
I'll check it right now. So Glitch Infinite had in the top 64. It had Vault, Yanni, DM if you want to count that he is a secondary, Onin, Yori, D Dog, and Jake. Those were 6.5 Steve mains
Okay.
in the top 64. Because if you want to count DM, because
Yeah,
he used
that's quite a
Pikachu
yeah.
or and Pythra as well, so I put it point 0.5.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to see exactly where things go from here with him because this weekend, this to me is a big moment to watch for this. This weekend there is a Meisuma event in Japan,
Mm.
and Japan has a Steve player. It has a few, but it has a particular one who basically broke the scale on their online rankings.
Yeah, I remember.
Smash Mate, I think it's called.
Yeah,
Akola, he he's the one I'm a little concerned about if we're going to talk about like Steve dominating the game. That's I'm worried about that, but we'll see this weekend. We'll see how he does.
of course.
He's won a few locals. He's never been to a big tournament. He has a few people to play against. I think Proto and Shuton are at the event, so he'll have some good data to work with. But it's one of those things where you just gotta wait and see with him. Doesn't seem like he's doing Bayo stuff right now. Steve just doesn't seem to be that omnipresent.
No, I don't think so either. I think there are
I,
more. I think there are other characters that could reach that Bayo uh, level of awareness other than Steve. I think Steve has some disadvantages that make him not even top 10 or top 15.
yeah, I'm not sure where I'd put him. He's such an odd little character.
Hmm.
But no, I don't think he's like Bayo 2 or anything. I just think he's going to be one of those weird Olimar type characters
Hmm.
where he's a little confusing to get a hold of.
Yeah,
I think matchup experience is going to help.
of course.
And then there's going to be probably two or three top 50 Steve mains that are like really good, who where matchup experience can only take you so far.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's like you said, only matchup experience will show and tell in the few months ahead.
Yeah, because Cola got 3-0'd, or I think by Jake, and I know he
Hmm.
has DD to play with, and I think that's just a matter of maybe Cola wasn't playing too hot that particular day, and
Hmm.
maybe Jake was just really playing out of his mind. So
Like I said, we have to wait and see in the following months.
yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you think banning a character will affect the rankings in any way, though?
Um, this question came up a lot in Smash 4. This was this was an interesting question, and this is also an issue with banning a character. I think you gotta if you're gonna ban a character, you gotta do it in the transition between seasons. Number
Hmm.
one, you gotta give people who main the character leeway. And number two, I just think that there's always going to be an immediate drop off of results because that person has spent probably hundreds of hours or probably thousands uh, or more practicing their character, and they have to go and put that time into another character. So it would take a lot of time, honestly.
Definitely.
I'm thinking like you would have a season where a player probably dropped a bit in results. And I think it's just important not to clown on him hard for it or anything. that was that was an issue with Smash 4.
Do you feel happy about how Ultimate ended, or will you have liked something or someone else added?
Um, I can't not be happy with the roster. It's just enormous and massive.
Hmm.
There are a lot of characters that I didn't really know too much about or care a whole lot about. Some I thought I'd hate and then I like. Like I like playing Byleth and I like watching Byleth, even though that was probably one of the worst reveals.
Hmm.
I would like to have Frogger in the game. People who know me know that I really like some of those early 2000s like Frogger games, but I know that's like it's not going to happen. So
God damn it.
um, most of my wanteds are very niche. Like I think Paper Mario is the most mainstream one that I would probably really like, and I don't know if I'd like what they would do with him. So,
Honestly, I understand completely what you're saying. Some of my character choices for the game were also pretty niche, so I understand. Don't worry.
oh yeah,
I
oh
wanted
yeah, yeah. It's
I for example wanted great another Punch Out rep, but not the Glass Jaw or King Hip. I wanted Great Tiger, the guy that levitated on the Punch Out game,
yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
or I don't know if you know Pandora's Tower. Like it's a game that came along with Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii, and that game was really good.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I wanted a
Well,
Pandora's Tower rip. So yeah, my choices were also pretty niche, but and
yeah.
I think a Zelda rep was my most wanted like known choice. You know.
Yeah, my stuff was stuff like Black Shadow from F-Zero, Quote from Cave Story, Gygus from Earthbound, just weird stuff that I don't think was ever going to happen. So I'm happy with the roster. It's just I have weird taste in like wanted characters. That's basically it. Like I would say the weirdest one that I actually got that I never thought I'd get was Pac-Man.
Mm. No, I was a weird guy that wanted either Piranha Plant or Goomba. I got Piranha Plant.
That's cool. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite picks they've ever done. It's so out there and it's so odd, and I just love it.
And nowadays it's probably one of the worst characters in the game. But here we are.
That's very sad too, because
Yeah,
I really like the character. I play him, but
it's
really,
trash.
really not good. So
Yeah. It's interesting that you named Gygas because I wanted like Masked Man or Porky in the game. I was pretty shocked that Porky wasn't in the game, to be honest. But
yeah, Porky seemed like a legitimate contender at one point. I'm surprised he wasn't in. And Masked Man was like a classic
mm,
pick people wanted all the way back from Brawl. Yeah,
yeah,
he's had a fan base for a while.
honestly, I'm pretty happy that Gino didn't got in.
I was so indifferent to it. I wish his me costume was a
Was
full
tweaked,
one
yeah,
with a soundtrack.
yeah,
Yeah, I wish he got the full package with that. That would have been cool, but I understand why they didn't. Copyright issues may have been a problem with the soundtrack,
of
and
course,
I don't know. Gino was just I never really played that original Mario RPG game, so
me
I
either.
just don't have any attachment to it.
Yeah, I honestly, it will. Although I think the thing that people got into Geno wasn't because of the game. I think uh, one of the first podcasts I made, this guy wanted like Geno
Uh,
in the game because it was basically this toy that came to life and started like being this amazing character with an interesting backstory. But it was this toy that came to life. But then I got to realize, but
yeah,
here's Rob. What's your problem?
right. Yeah, another big thing was that Gino had a lot of really big fan animations back in the
Mm,
Brawl days, Newgrounds, stuff like that.
yeah.
And a lot of people just really started to like him. And I think there was a big resurgence in want for Gino because he'd been kind of teased before, and there was a lot of nostalgia for him.
Yeah,
I kind of get why he has a fan base. I just don't understand how it got so ravenous. I'll never get that one.
exactly. Um, so do you think there's gonna be a next Smash, or Ultimate is to quote perfect under end quote to have a sequel at least so early?
The answer to this question is a lot different now after the Mario Kart thing happened. Um, because Mario Kart's basically getting a whole new game's worth of tracks.
Hmm.
And I feel like they're doing that and they're revealing it slowly because they don't have the Smash reveals anymore, because they can now, use that as a good way to get traction on their streams, reveal 4 new courses.
Of course.
And I don't know. I feel like the best answer, since getting all these characters back, I don't think is possible. It's just legally, I don't think this is going to be able to happen again. I feel like the best answer would be to have a size down roster and rework a lot of the characters
Hmm.
for a new Smash game, and I feel like that's realistic. Um, but I wouldn't be shocked if in, I don't know, 3, 4 years, if they just up and announce a Fighters Pass 3 or 4. It wouldn't shock me at all, really. But I'm not expecting it. But it's either going to be another very late extension of the game, because I think the Switch is just going to keep chugging along,
Mm.
or it's going to be like a downsized new game. But we're getting a new one either way. I'm positive. Um, it's too big of a franchise. It makes a lot of money for them.
Yeah.
So
I honestly think that they're gonna make a melee port before they make a new game, and then after the port, kind of probably like 3 or 4 years after that, and we'll have to see.
yeah, that seemed yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nintendo getting along with Panda, I think, for their circuit. I think they have like Melee in their circuit.
Yeah.
Signals to me that maybe they'd be willing to do that. I'm interested if it would be a remaster, just like a remaster of the original, or if they would remake it and add new stuff. I have no clue how that would go.
Hmm. Um.
But I don't think that's unlikely. So.
Yeah. Do you feel that? Well, going back into the competitive side of the game, um, do you feel that
Mhm.
Spargo will ever be the best in Ultimate, or do you think that, or will Leo always be the best, or do you think there's this third rival in the sites?
I don't expect a third rival at this point.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, at least.
Okay.
You never know for sure, but I think it's probably going to stay Leo. I think that Spargo's going to probably be the second best player. I think he's going to occasionally take tournaments or events.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Leo's going to hold a relatively solid grasp on the scene. Like, eventually, Leo's probably going to place outside of the top two for at a tournament. Eventually he's going to have a bad day, but to me, he reminds me of Zero a lot in terms of just how utterly dominant he is. And unlike Zero, Leo doesn't really have bad tournaments. Like Zero had a couple every now and then. Leo hasn't had a bad tournament in nearly 3 years. So
3 years. I think.
some of that's obviously quarantine, but
I think the worst placement of Leo in Ultimate was like in the beginning of 2019 at a Japanese tournament, and after that he never
yes,
placed outside of fourth, and it was in.
yeah,
I mean, like he got fourth in Gommel 2019, and then he never got
uh,
a top three or top two placement outside of that ever.
yeah, he hasn't missed a grand finals since basically mid to early 2019, and
Yeah.
obviously some of that's quarantine that inflates the time a bit, but still, the fact that he was able to come back with a completely new character, not even remotely similar to Joker in any form, way, or fashion, and basically do the same thing is just it's legitimately insane. It's not quite talked about enough, I don't think, just how good he is.
Yeah. I think it's
And Spargo's, yeah.
no, no. You were saying about I was sorry. I was later. I'm gonna say that.
No, I was just gonna, yeah, just I think that Spargo's gonna have to take some time to get quite that good.
Hmm.
I think he's gonna have some bursts where he's good, but it's gonna take a lot to dethrone Leo. It's gonna take a lot.
Definitely. I personally think that Leo got to the point, and probably many other players got to the point in this. How to say? I think this post or maybe mid pandemic season, what I say is called, is similar to like the beginning of 2019 era of Smash Ultimate. I think we got these players that
Hmm.
just wanted to play with the characters that they want to play instead of the characters that they feel that are the best. For example, we have Leo that started with
Yeah.
Joker and now is with Byleth. That is probably mid tier or mid high tier. We have Twig that is
Yeah.
playing with Diddy Kong. We have um, who else is in that? We have Waddy that plays with whoever he feels like that day. And
Yeah,
that happens
basically.
with many other players, and it's so interesting. It's so interesting that we had this meta so similar to the one from the beginning of 2019.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem particularly dominated by anybody. I'd say the most common character now, well, I mean the most common character right now is Roy. I don't know why, but he's the most prominent one.
Roy and Rob, if I'm not mistaken.
I would say on a long track, yeah, Rob.
Yeah.
I think Rob's like third right now to Samus, but I don't think Samus is going to stay very high for very long.
No.
I think that's just incidental. Rob is probably going to continue to be like top three for forever.
Definitely. Well, we've been talking about Smash and rankings quite a while. Now I would like to talk
Uh
to
huh.
Josh a little bit. So tell me, what do you like to do
Okay.
aside of Smash?
Uh, Quite a bit, honestly. I obviously like video games, in general. I'm a big fan of the GameCube era Nintendo stuff. Um, in terms of like actual career paths, I already mentioned I like astronomy stuff. That would be my dream job, but I'm probably getting into atmospheric science and climatology in the next few years. Because I love weather stuff. I like learning about the climate. I like sciences, stuff like that. I love Legos. I have a bunch of them around me, but mostly older ones. Newer ones are too expensive and they're too, I don't know, too much of a sheen on them, basically. They're too perfect. I like
Yeah.
the blocky older ones. Feel a little more ragtag. They're cool. Um, I. God, what all do I do? I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh a lot. Um,
Yeah,
Not so much anymore.
I was gonna say, like, you got into the competitive scene of Yu-Gi-Oh, or was it just casual?
Oh, it was competitive. It's where all of my current writing stuff came from, basically.
Oh.
Everything do in Smash essentially started in 2009, 2010, in Yu-Gi-Oh.
And what got you outside of that
I
scene?
was Yeah, the game got bad, basically, is the short of it. Well, I mean, like, the structure of the game was, there'd be a new booster pack that comes out. The new booster pack would have incredibly overpowered cards. They'd be very expensive.
Yeah.
Uh, and you basically would have to pay into a format every few weeks or every few months. There would be ban lists. The ban lists would increasingly be less about the balance of the game and more get you to buy new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the sort of illusion that maybe the game would eventually become balanced, that never happened. Um, and yeah, I just kind of got tired of it. I still occasionally play it,
Mm-hmm.
but much more casually.
Yeah.
I've been tempted to get into it again because the new like Master Duel thing came out, but I'm at a distance with it right now.
Have you ever tried to
uh,
go out into any other card game, like competitive?
uh, I was like back when there was a website called Duel Network. I was like top 50 online at Yu-Gi-Oh, and I just never quite got into anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I've played Magic the Gathering casually. I played when I was in New York. I played some of the new Digimon card game with some friends.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, no. I've never really been into the Pokemon TCG beyond just maybe buying a pack to look at the cool artwork. That's basically it.
Same. um. So how has the pandemic affected you inside and outside of Smash?
Inside of Smash, it gave me a lot of time to do a lot of projects or pitch a lot of project ideas. It gave me a lot of time to help
Mm-hmm.
with that. I've been slow on stuff, but things are coming to a head on a lot of the stuff I've been working on the last, well, good lord, couple of years. Um, and outside of Smash, had to work on my physical exercise a bit as of late. I got a little lazy during the pandemic,
Mhm.
not going out as much. Um, I'm also a pretty big film buff, and not being able to go to movie theaters was a bit of a hit, but you know.
What type of movies do you like?
Oh man, the only type of movie I really don't usually watch much of are like strict comedies.
Mm.
Um, but I like thrillers, suspense movies, dramas.
Ooh.
I like a little bit of everything, more or less.
Mhm. Yeah, me too. I try to like at least watch one or two movies a week. My dad is got me a lot into movies because he watches at least one or twice or two a day. Uh,
That's cool.
yeah. So my dream job is getting into cinematography, mostly screenwriting. But
Yeah, that's really cool stuff.
yeah, I really
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that particular job. Um, but nowadays, I will also love to get into statistics and not necessarily
yeah,
not necessarily with Smash, but statistics in
yeah,
general.
yeah. And the last thing I like to do, and the thing I still do a lot of to this day, I've done it for a while, and it's why I can push out a lot of the articles I do, is I do like creative writing a lot.
Oh,
Um,
since when?
yeah, I love creative writing. Since I was like a little kid. And I wrote like fan fiction in the early 2010s and stuff like that. So
What kind of fan fiction?
it was just like Yu-Gi-Oh fan fiction, more or less.
Alright.
It was just like take the concept of it. I didn't even use existing characters for the most part. I just made up my own stories, and eventually I decided I wanted to write books and stuff like that. I wanted to exercise my creativity more
Cool.
without having to do card games with it.
Yeah. If there were like a third option for me to like for like job or like getting to study, I think it will be voices or like a voice animate like voice acting, something like that.
Hmm.
Because really I'm really good at making voices for pre-existing characters or like new characters, and people have told me that already. Like I know how to do uh, the Jar Jar Binks voice. I'm not gonna do it if you are a Star Wars fan though. Uh, I know how to make the shit. Let me look. The Golem voice, as well as other
That's
voices.
cool. Yeah.
So, and if they show me like a character, I can try my best in doing it. But nowadays, most of the similar works here in Argentina are more for other types of works. Let me check what what is the correct. Uh, well, I don't know. But but because I want to get more into statistics and cinematography, that interesting job is not my main focus,
Right. Right.
of course. Well, now with some random
It's
lightning,
yeah.
now with some random lightning round questions for this podcast, where I'm gonna talk about
Okay.
some related to Smash, some related to like nothing really not related to Smash. You can explain more about it, not necessarily have to be like fast or anything. So,
Yeah.
Barnard Sloop, are you ready?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Are you sure?
Yes.
All right, cool. So,
Yes.
what's the worst Meta Knight's alt?
The default one.
Really? Not the.
Yeah, it's that or the gray one, I would say.
All right.
But
Um,
the one I use like three. I use like the red, the pink, and the green ones, mostly.
Wait, which pink? The Galactonite or the pink and yellow?
The pink and yellow. That's my
Oh.
favorite one, and I know it's kind of an ugly one, but I love it.
No, I think the worst one is the dark blue with. I think
Oh,
it
that's
has
fair.
like red and black. I think.
Yeah,
I think that's the
yeah.
worst
That
one.
that that one's kind of that's kind of lame. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I know that you're from Texas, so I wanted to like have this Texas question. Is
Hmm.
Whataburger overrated?
No, it's pretty good.
Right,
I like Whataburger.
right. I just wanted to get like this. Um, how to say this? Not overrated. Is this no this like absurd and stupid question into the mix. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Uh, Cookies and cream. So basically vanilla with chocolate chip cookies in it. Alternatively, sherbet.
What's that?
Those are basically the only two kinds of ice cream I eat if I ever eat ice cream.
What's sherbet? Hello?
Do what?
What's the second flavor you mentioned? I don't know it.
A sherbet. It's like a style of ice cream. Basically, it has a bunch of
Oh,
fruity flavors.
yeah, I know what you mean now. Yeah.
I Yeah, yeah. Probably mint sherbet. It's my favorite
Mm.
of those.
You said cookies and cream. Does it necessarily have to be Oreos or any cookie is valid?
I think any cookie is valid. I don't know. I'm not even sure if it's Oreos. It's just like chocolate chips.
Oh, in the U.S. it's chocolate chips. Oh,
Yeah,
here in most countries of South America is Oreos or at least those type of cookies.
yeah.
Interesting. Weird, but interesting. Well, this is an interesting question. ¿Sabes hablar español?
No. I, I don't think so.
Y- I
I'm not sure.
what's your favorite video game of all time aside of Smash?
Um, my favorite game of the last decade is definitely Dark Souls, but my favorite game of all time is probably Thousand Year Door or